What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Eight Limbs Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Levi Lascsak. I am incredibly excited to have this gentleman on the podcast today. It's interesting how he came up to my radar, but if you don't know Levi, what Levi was able to do was generate over $1 million in commission in real estate in his first year passively through YouTube, without paid ads, without paid budgets, without all the cold calling, door knocking. And as we know, that's what we all wish to do in the real estate business. So Levi, welcome on the show, my man.
Man, thank you so much for having me, Tony. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So let's jump right into it. Well, actually, I'll tell just how well what you're doing works, because everyone that knows me, you guys know my entire message is video branding, get yourself known, get yourself seen. And my primary business is a large media agency here in Central Florida. So I attend a lot of events from nationwide stuff to local events. And so I have a gentleman that lives in Orlando, Florida. He's a great colleague of mine who's actually connected to somebody I met at another event. His name is Dawood. I meet him at the Don Salazar for coffee, for a meeting, for stuff we're working on doing. And he tells me, you know who you remind me of? You remind me of this guy, Levi, I just had on my podcast. Do you follow him yet? No, I don't. Sends me Levi. In normal life, I followed Levi, moved on with my life, didn't think much of it, and continued on. No more than a few days later, I was at a large networking event for a luxury real estate agent that he brought his wife. I just did a large property for him and their EXP agents who just recently moved here from like South Carolina. And his wife goes, you need to connect with this guy, Levi. You got a lot of the same things going on as him. A few days later, again, I hear this gentleman's name. And so right at that point, I was like, I stopped what I was doing. I'm like, I'm going to send the message now, because Dawood started that group chat with us. But the more I followed, the more I've seen what he's doing. It is incredible. And it just goes to show how great minds think alike, because he is doing what I would do if I jumped on the side of real estate, which would be focusing my entire day-to-day on creating value-based assets through video that live on forever and continue to drip leads to me. So we're going to hear from him about why he did it, how he did it, what it's leading to, and how you guys can contact him. And why don't you show him the new book, which I see the shirt is being represented, but he has a new book, which I'm excited about getting myself, Passive Prospecting. You guys know I'm dedicated to being the forefront leader in all things real estate marketing in my network area. So hopefully I can learn a lot from Levi as well. So
thank you, Tony.
Yeah. So we can start from the beginning, man. So why YouTube? Why video?
Because I was tired of prospecting. So
walk through that. What does that even look like for the normal agent who does things the normal way, who doesn't break $100,000 a year? What do they normally fill their day with?
Well, I've been in sales for 20 plus years. All right. So love sales, hated prospecting. At least that's what I realized whenever my business came to a screeching halt in 2020, whenever the world shut down. So what I realized was I was 41 years old at that time. And I was asking myself, well, how do I start over without starting over? And it really kind of scared me to death to think about starting from scratch, prospecting and building a new business. I mean, sure. Well, yeah. And so that's what really got me to dig deep during 2020. So I have sold, I was in the military out of high school, and then I sold gym memberships to cell phones, to pharmaceuticals, to financial services. And, I had 3 major setbacks in my life. And each time I was taken out of the picture, my business stopped, and so I finally realized over the summer of 2020, what am I doing wrong? I started asking myself very difficult questions. How do you start over without starting over? Where did I go wrong? Why am I in this position at this age? And I had to dig deep, and it was hard because I was, it was a tough time for everybody. But also I was like, what am I going to start? What am I going to do in the middle of a global shutdown? I'm not going to get a job because first of all, I don't want a job, but it's also 30 million layoffs just happened. What business do you start in the middle of a global shutdown? And really, real estate was one of the only businesses that started to grow. Now, I've got many friends in real estate and very successful agents, but I never wanted to be a real estate agent. So why? Because I picture them as the person that's bugging you in Starbucks, right? That who always has an ulterior motive, who's like, oh, tell me more about yourself. Well, oh, by the way, I'm a real estate agent. Here's my card, let me get your information and I'll get you in my database and start bugging the hell out of you, right? Yes. So that was my perception of real estate agents. That's why I just never wanted to be one. But my friends kept, nipping at my ears about, hey, man, they know me. They know my work ethic. And I've been successful in all my previous companies. But again, it seemed like every 5 years I hit this major reset. So I was like, I can't do that this time. I don't want to start something, first of all, prospecting, going out, shaking hands, kissing babies, cold calling, door knocking. I mean, and in the middle of a shutdown, like, are you going to door knock? No. Were networking events happening? No, not really. So
Right.
those types of methods were ruled out anyways.
Right.
So I had to sit there and I asked myself a very simple but difficult question. If I were going to move into real estate, is there a way I could actually attract business versus chase it? And that's what I had to figure out. And I just thought about it and I go, well, it's probably social media, first of all. But which platform? Here's the mistake I think most agents make, most people make when they get in business. Somebody will tell them, congratulations, you're an agent now. You've got to be on every platform. Make sure you open up your Facebook business page, your Instagram, your TikTok, your LinkedIn, your Twitter, right? And make sure everybody knows you're everywhere. Well, what happens is you end up putting about 20% effort across 5 different platforms. You never truly understand a platform. Now, I understood that from the beginning. So I knew coming into this, I'm like, if I'm going to go the social media route, I need to pick one platform and go all in on that platform. But which one? Because there's so many to choose from. Right. During 2020, most people were advocating for Instagram or TikTok, mainly TikTok, because everybody was waking up with 10,000 magic followers, right? one video and they're like, okay, I got 10,000 followers, but I didn't see anybody really converting business from that. So, and plus those platforms didn't really sit with me and my personality. And I felt like they were a little bit more of the younger generation, platforms. But at the same time, I just didn't see myself creating content, in little snippets here and there. So, I have a different opinion now. But of course, I just kept looking. YouTube was actually my last choice. So when I discovered YouTube, I was like, I started to realize this is a search engine, not a social media platform.
Yes.
And people are not searching for the best real estate agent on YouTube. They're searching about learning what it's like to live in your area. What's there to do? What's the best schools? Is there crime or no crime? Or what's the best neighborhoods? They're searching all of that. And what it made me realize is that I've been in Dallas for 20 plus years. I know Dallas. I'm not a good real estate agent. I haven't even sold a house. So I think that's what the other platforms gave me reserve about was I saw really seasoned agents giving really good tips on how to buy homes and updates and all these things that I had zero experience in. So, but I know Dallas and I can talk about Dallas. And so I started to realize if I make content about Dallas, and then I started to look at search results. And the search results were crazy because I started looking at suburbs. And one suburb in Dallas, in particular, I looked at got 90,500 searches per month on Google. But whenever I looked on YouTube, it got 834,000 searches. So that's 10 times the search volume on YouTube than on Google. Yeah. So that led me to the path of like, there might be something here. And if there's that many people just searching suburbs of Dallas, if I can educate them on those, areas, maybe they'll give me a call. So that was the whole premise.
This episode of the Aliens Podcast is brought to you by 7 Day Social Realtor, your one-stop shop for all things real estate social media. It is an all-included course that teaches you how to shoot content, how to utilize content, how to make viral reels, and how to actually get yourself new leads and new listings with content in social media. You can find them at 7 Day Social Realtor on Instagram, as well as 7daysocialrealtor.com. Use code 8LIMS for 10% off. That's amazing. And yeah, you just said a point which I speak about all the time, which is like, when was the last time that we didn't want to see a video on something we're going to go buy, do, or eat?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we were just in Las Vegas, me and my partner, and we were looking at restaurants to go to, and she's looking up personal videos that people have made of the food dishes coming out. So if we have access to see a video of something, it's thousands of photos. That's what it is. But it's like, we don't want to read an article with one photo. I want to see someone's, even if it's a poorly shot YouTube video on a short, I want to see what this gym looks like to go inside. I want to see what the restaurant experience is like. So I'm 100% with you on that. And people are always looking with that. So you started on YouTube, you knew Dallas already. And when you came to what to title it, did you decide to title this as your name?
I did not. No, because
what was the process there?
Yeah, well, I realized that if it's a search engine, nobody was searching my name. So I had no brand, no recognition. And plus my last name is Polish. It's impossible to say and even harder to spell. So at the same time,
I might have just had to ask Levi for pronunciation. So
yeah, it happens it's happened my whole life. And so, I could care less because it doesn't matter. Some people get offended. I'm like, it doesn't matter. But yeah, it's funny just because I knew that wasn't a search term. And as I just did a research, and that's what happened when I decided to go all in on YouTube, I researched the platform for about 60 days. And here's what I believe. I believe you can hyperlearn any subject in 60 days in this day and age. And what does that mean? That means if you devote all your free time, that means don't watch Tiger King, don't watch the new Netflix series, but watch YouTube videos, buy some marketing books, read a couple of blogs, but more or less, you're probably going to watch YouTube videos or read a couple of books. And that's what I did over 60 days. I bought 8 YouTube marketing books. Not all of them were great. I started watching YouTubers that teach YouTube, that teach you about titles and thumbnails and tags and descriptions. And that's where I started to learn more. And I just consumed as much as I could over 60 days, but you've got to put a cap on it, because otherwise you're going to get into analysis paralysis.
Yeah, you war game too much, you never take action.
Exactly. So that's why I wanted to put a cap on it. I built out a business plan. And I think that's something else nobody ever does when it comes to social media, is they never build out a plan. They just get started. Now there's a lot of, there's something to say about getting started and taking action. I do believe in that. But at the same time, there's so much information out there right now that if you just plan a little bit, study a little bit, I believe if you're an agent, I don't care if it's YouTube, FISBOs, open houses. If you hyper-learned open houses over the next 60 days, you would probably be better than 99% of the agents that do open houses.
Because I agree with you on that. So what you're talking about is talking about a bigger concept, which isn't spoken about enough, Levi, to be honest with you, which is that like what is hyper focus, right? When you read books like Think and Grow Rich, and you really think about what Napoleon Hill was saying, is it's like the power of the mind and concentrated effort. So it's like one area. And right now we are the product of social media. Everyone's attention spans are so short. No one can go to the bathroom without their cell phone anymore, right? If you're in a waiting room and you have your phone, you feel this anxiousness, like I need to check my stuff. So there's a big power to that. That's why I know a lot of people that have ADHD, like what I had, diagnosed through high school and middle school. It's actually like hyper focus disorder. We just don't want to pay attention to other stuff. But if there's something that I'm interested in, I like to hyper focus, and I can do 8 hours of binge learning on that subject because I'm like cramming it in.
Yeah.
The best analogy I ever heard one of my mentors say is like distractions like poking a garden hose with a pin. So you have a pressure washer at one end, but every little thing you try to do multitask is a little pin you're poking. And you're losing pressure. But at the end of the day, like you said, the 20% effort across 5 platforms isn't going to be good as 100% effort into one platform, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's much easier, I believe, if you master one platform, it'll be much easier to branch off to the other platforms later down the road. Unless you're Hormozi coming in with a $150,000 a month marketing budget, right? then you can cover all your platforms. But most of us don't start out that way,
Yeah. So you named the page "Living in Dallas, Texas."
Yeah, and it was a top search term. I started looking at search terms. What would people search related to Dallas, Texas? Dallas, Texas real estate, moving to Dallas, relocating to Dallas, living in Dallas. Oh, living in Dallas had the highest search volume. So I thought that sounds like a cool name.
How were you able to find what people were searching the most of? Like if someone doesn't know how to do that, how could you figure that out?
Yeah, there's a great tool called TubeBuddy. And so we use TubeBuddy, and that pulls searches from YouTube. And so we can type in keywords, SEO. That's how we optimize videos. We can do A/B testing on titles and tags and thumbnails, all kinds of stuff. So I learned that from other YouTubers, of course. And I was like, oh, that's genius. So I started out with all these hacks up front because I just took time to study.
Yeah. I mean, would you say that's probably one of the greatest attributes it takes, is like the ability to focus? I think that I don't consider most people to be inherently lazy, but I do consider most people to be inherently lacking focus. So they just can't seem to like talk to somebody and they'll tell you the reasons why they couldn't do it. But then you look at their social media and there's a lot of fun going on. There's a lot of extra stuff. And you're like, man, you could have spent 2 weekends and learn this stuff.
Yeah.
And not see the sun for those weekends, but it would pay you off. And, it's hard, but at the same time, it's why you're able to slingshot yourself to stand out from these agents, because it does leave room for the people who can do those things.
Absolutely.
So Living in Dallas, Texas launched, and the focus was on showing people how to live in the community. But interesting enough, I was doing a lot of research on your page. One of your highest ranked videos, your highest performing videos, is one that says, "I can't stand Dallas."
Yeah.
And so you're using some clickbait style there. You're getting people's attention. And I didn't actually get a chance to watch that full video, but were you saying the things you didn't like about Dallas? What was the video topic about?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think we picked the top 11 or 12 reasons why people complain or don't like Dallas. But, of course, we added a little spin at the end, which is, by the way, I've lived here for 20 plus years, so it can't really be that bad. By the way,
Right.
give us a call if you're thinking about making a move here. So, I can't say, that, the news has a saying, right? If it bleeds, it leads. And we know if you open up your YouTube page right now, you probably see a lot of market crash videos with houses underwater and up in flames. And, and they got a lot of views. I mean, I don't believe you're going to really attract real estate business that way by being negative all the time, especially if you're saying the market's going to crash tomorrow. So I try to keep a positive spin on pretty much everything. I will talk about, we're fortunate to be enough in Dallas where really great economy, high relocation, lots of jobs, expansion, new construction. I mean, so we have a lot of those factors in our favor, but we got to take advantage of that. But that was something, yes, definitely got the clicks, got the views. I'm not sure if it's correlated to business. I'm not sure anybody's ever said, Levi, I love your I can't stand Dallas video. That's why we moved to Dallas. So usually it's the pro Dallas video.
Let me show you how to live in Dallas. I agree. And the community tour aspect is interesting because, and you could talk more on this. I think that in general, most people have seen something like it. So they've seen, oh, I understand you're tour guiding. Like most people have done that when their friends come to visit. They know what the process is. Hey, you have a buddy. He's coming to stay in your hometown. Never been there before. What are you going to do? You're going to take him. You're going to think, all right, where do I want to take him? What are some of the cool rooftop bars? Like we live at the beach here in St. Petersburg. So it's always like, we're always trying to pack in just a few things in a couple of days to show someone the city. And it's hard to get it all in. What do you think is one of the things that holds people back from being able to do that once the camera's on?
I think just repetition, So, agents go out and have these conversations every single day with clients. Now, the problem is at the end of the day, that conversation is gone and lost forever. Yep. It's not scalable. It's not duplicatable. Now, yep. If you stayed 1 hour after that client left and just did the exact same thing, but you did it with your camera, guess what? Now you publish that and you're giving the opportunity for 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000 people to see that conversation of you explaining that community like you just did to your client. You're just doing it with the camera. And the reason they can't do it is because they haven't done it enough. And ultimately, everything we start in the beginning is always awkward. Tell me what you started in the beginning that you were just, I mean, yes, maybe there's some natural people that, adapt to something, but it's not the norm, right? It's rare. So for me, I never had a fear of the camera. What I had to learn was how to have a conversation with the camera, because we're used to seeing body language and people, interrupt or ask us questions, or we can mirror and match, or, we work with people. But with the camera, it doesn't talk back. So for me, I had to learn how to still be conversational to make things natural and have that camera become my best friend or my client, or to see that camera as my client. And once you can do that, then you just have a conversation. Is it weird talking to yourself? Maybe in the beginning, but again, you get over everything through repetition.
Yeah, very well said. I love that you just said that. You need to have a conversation with the camera, and it's so true. And we always tell our clients, you can use the cameraman as a body of reference. Sometimes we even include the cameraman asking them questions, and we have no problem including the audio there because they just can't continue to run. But I do think there's an art to that. It can be learned, but some people do have a knack for it. Some people run to the camera. They're running at the camera every day. And there's the misconception where I think a lot of people feel like there's too much narcissism or ego attached with wanting to be on camera. So, when selfies became super popular and the whole duck face thing, it's like everyone got put off by that. Like you must love yourself so much for the selfies. And it's like, there's one thing about being a sexy picture. Another thing about being, hey, I'm going to make sure you know me to do business. So that's constant conversation we're having is we're telling clients, hey, you don't have to go out there and try to over glamorize yourself, but people still need to know you so they can find you when they want to do business in that area. And it's always the bigger challenge to get people to get on camera. But when did you really, how long until making videos did you start to feel like, wow, I'm glad I decided to do this?
Well, we got our first call within 30 days, and that was pretty cool. So 4 weeks of videos, and then got the first phone call. That really enhances your belief at that time.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Once you get one feedback loop, you're like, okay. So we've had clients that they don't like doing branding sessions or videos. And then as soon as they do, and they go, you're not going to believe what happened, man. What happened? I was at the grocery store last night. this lady's like, hey, I love your videos. I see them everywhere. And I was like, wait, people see them? I was like, yeah, people see the stuff. Like they're going to see it. Once they feel that for the first time, they're in and they're hooked on it and they know it's going to work for them. The question I have for you is what was your video frequency in the beginning and what is it now?
Yeah, in the beginning, it was 3 videos a week for 2 years. So one of those reasons is I wanted to dominate the market, and I wanted as much content out there as quickly as possible without saturating my own channel, so to speak. So I just did a video 3 times a week. I would test it like publishing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. I mean, just always give it a little room to breathe, and just stayed consistent on that for 2 years. Really ramped up the growth this last year as my schedule gets a lot more hectic now with opportunities to podcast and speak and everything else we're working on. It is a challenge. I have maintained at least 2 videos a week now, but at the same time, we have the traction and the momentum. So we haven't seen really a drop off. And that's the thing is you just have to test around with things. So if you start out in, a certain amount of videos, you don't have to stick with that the entire rest of your life.
Right. I agree with you. The frequency is high, and that's a high sustain to stick with. It's 3 videos a week. I'm assuming you're going to shoot a video, and if you go out for a shoot day and you're driving to location, was there a drone involved? So you're still launching a drone, I'm assuming.
I mean, the first year I did everything with an iPhone. The first year, it wasn't until about a year in that we invested into a videographer after we made $1 million and had the budget. But in the beginning, I really didn't have the budget for anything. So I used an iPhone, no drone, just all straight walking footage. Or I would set up that iPhone on a tripod right here in my office and make a video on my iPhone. I would do it. Yeah, I would do it through Zoom. I would use Zoom for little screen share videos and things like that. So very minimal equipment. And then about a year after that, whenever we crushed it on initially, then yeah, I invested.
That's amazing. And so what I was going to touch on was like, for people that may or may not know what production looks like. So on average, and you can give me your frame, what time from leave Levi's house to get back to Levi's house on a shoot day showing Dallas, was that 3, 4, 5 hours, 6 hours, 2 hours? What does it look like for you?
Well, it gets much shorter with more repetition, right? So the funny thing is if I went out to do a neighborhood tour or a community tour or something like that, the tour would probably take about 4 hours for me to do that. And then you add in driving and getting back, maybe an extra hour, half hour. So, anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. The most I've done now at this point is I've done 4 different communities in about 4.5 hours. So
yeah, you're getting fast. You get a flow. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm sure once you hired a professional, it's smooth.
Yeah. Out, right? But now, with our videographer, we're really changing up content now, and we'll go out almost for 6 to 7 hours now to do one community tour. But we're also making much longer videos, drone footage, B-roll. We're making very significant production value has gone up versus just an iPhone.
Yeah, I love that, man. That's just to go to show you, right? I mean, most of my business, we tell our clients that, hey, until you have the budget to work with us, get your phone out. It's fine for now. Mm-hmm. And that's something that a lot of competitors in my industry don't like that I say. I make videos all the time. Like, you don't need a videographer. You don't need a photographer to shoot. You can shoot a listing with the phone. It's not recommended, but if it's your first listing, it's what you got to do. Do what you got to do. You're going to get a closing check. And then I want to hear your thoughts on this. How important is that to start investing in the future? So it's like, if you get a couple of deals and you see, hey, this video stuff's working, you get some closing checks. Would you, like, this is a joke I make, but would you say, take the girl from Hinge to Tulum on a trip, or invest in a videographer, invest in a marketing plan, or go buy yourself a camera or get started, right? It's like, think ahead.
Well, that's one of the tough questions I answered for myself, which is, why was I in the position I was in 2020? Well, the last 20 years, I was always working in singular mode. I was always working in, if I want it done right, I need to do it. I wish there was more of me. It's too expensive to hire somebody. And what I learned was that protecting my money did not protect my income. So
yeah, I love that. I love that.
Yep. And so
define that for me. How do you mean that?
Well, I grew up very conservative. My parents always said we can't afford that. They always tried to save every little penny. I literally grew up on garage sales, like never went to a department store, never went to the mall, got everything from garage sales. And, that was fine for me. I didn't live some bad childhood, but I always heard, can't afford that, can't afford that, can't afford that, can't afford that, And so I think I took part of that in my subconscious. So I was always like looking to scrimp and save and not spend money. So I was protecting my money, but that never, my income never took off. I could never compound my income because I was protecting my money so much.
That's very well said. Yeah, I totally agree with you, man. I mean, in the business that I'm in, like I said, I've talked to hundreds of agents that want to be what you are, right? And we have a few. We've got some very high performing agents that are the MREs that are making the $1 million a year, and they're big YouTube strategies, social media strategies, but they know it costs money. They invest, thousands and thousands monthly with us to do this for them. And I sometimes I talk to people and I'm like, that's really the only difference is some are just willing to take the step and invest, and some are completely hesitant, and they'll get to the point of like doing it, and then they'll come up with a million reasons they can't do it. You know what? No, next month, and they don't do it. A year later, their business is the exact same way. Other agents have grown 3 or 4 or 5 times more, and they're getting all the listings. And we're seeing that there's a few agents in our area that truly dominate, like especially the luxury niches, and they'll get a closing check and they'll throw $4,000 into a well-produced, badass community tour video. And that's again and again and again. They continue to do it. And I'm like, you understand, they're getting further and further away from you guys every time they do this. Like it's going to be really hard to fill that gap because there's just so much of them out there now.
Yeah.
I definitely believe in it. So right now, what led you to start to write Passive Prospecting, and what can people expect to learn in that book?
Man, that book is jam-packed. The first 9 chapters, we talk about passive prospecting principles. And then the last 5 chapters, we talk about passive prospecting process. So it's really a nuts and bolts book. But the first 9 chapters, the principles, it really breaks down the difference between marketing through video on YouTube, how that is completely different than everything else. So I really try to shift people's mindset to think differently and understand the power of video. And so it was something I think I've just always had a aspiration to write a book. And I finally figured out how to do that. And I finally felt like I had enough content and enough information that I could provide that value to somebody else. And so it was a project that I wanted to get started. And it's amazing to see how it's done.
And I think you told me in the beginning of the waiting room, you had Ryan Serhant write the forward on that. How did that come to be?
Well, that's a good story. So Ryan Serhant, we were in the middle of writing the book, and I was consuming some Ryan Serhant content as well. I mean, I've always been a fan of $1 Million Listing, even way before I was in real estate. I've always been attracted to real estate. It's a sexy business, right?
It was calling you in, and you were going to shake things up a bit. So
the TV side of it's really cool, but I never wanted to be the agent because I knew all the stress and all the prospecting they had to do. So I've always followed that show. But anyways, now that I was in the business, I was in the middle of writing the book. Really what happened was I was going to call the book YouTube for Real Estate. That's what I was going to name the book, because I was thinking in search terms. I was like, well, if somebody ever goes on Amazon and searches YouTube for real estate, then our book would pop up, right?
I like Passive Prospecting a lot better.
Well, that was a thing. I was walking through the airport, and then Benji Travis, who wrote co-authored YouTube Secrets, a big time YouTuber, I was talking to him one day and I was like, hey man, trying to think of the name of the book. And he's like, Levi, don't worry about the name of the book. Write the book. The name will come to you. I was like, okay, that's cool. All right. So don't worry about it. But it was still going to be YouTube for Real Estate. Well, I was traveling. I was in an airport and I was looking at the airport bookshelf, and I was just staring at it. And I thought, you know what? YouTube for Real Estate will never be on an airport bookshelf. That's way too niche down. And so I said, do I want to only help real estate agents, or do I want to help entrepreneurs? And then it made me think about Sell It Like Serhant, the book. And I thought, you know what? Sell It Like Serhant is a sales book. He just uses real estate examples, to get his point across. Grant Cardone writes sales books, but he uses, his real estate experience as examples, right? And so that got me thinking, you know what? I need to write the concept. I need to write the principles. I need to write the overarching theme and the high level aspects, so anybody can apply this, not just real estate. And then I can just use our channel as the examples, right, of how we know this to be true. And so that's how the name came about. And I think I was listening to something about passive income, one day. And of course, passive income is probably the biggest buzzword in entrepreneurship. And I can't remember exactly where, but it just hit me one time. And I was like, oh, that's what our videos are doing. They're passively prospecting, and so that's where I was like, that's the name of the book. From there, there's an event here in Dallas. My mortgage officer that we refer all of our business to was throwing an event, and he paid to have Ryan Serhant come in to speak. And he was like, I want to do it for brand recognition, throw this event. He had in some other incredible speakers. And then he was like, Levi, I want you to be on the stage too. That's how cool he is to just get me in there. So I was like, awesome. And he goes, and I'm going to do a dinner with Ryan Serhant. Afterwards, you can come to dinner. Like, even better. And so then I told my business partner, Travis, I was like, I'm going to get Ryan to write the foreword. And he's like, okay. And then I saw
it right there.
Yeah. And then I saw Ryan he was opening his Hampton office for Serhant. He opened his own brokerage, and he was opening his Hampton office. And I just got an email, and it said, come join me at the opening of my Hampton office. By the way, I'm doing a private mastermind that weekend at my Hampton house, and only for 15 agents. And so I clicked on the button, and I went through the funnel, and it was $6,200. And I was like, I'll pay that to go spend a weekend. And this was before he was coming to Dallas to speak. So I told Travis, I was like, let's go to the Hamptons for a weekend, meet Ryan, hang out, just get to know him. I was like, that's it. He's like, cool, let's go. So we went. We were at that mastermind, only 15 agents. So we got to shake hands, hang out at his Hampton house. Yeah. And then, so when he came,
was it worth the 6,200?
Yeah. I mean, of course.
No, of course. No, I mean, I was joking. Like, to have Ryan Serhant write the forward in your book and be able to make that connection, absolutely worth that, right? So that's the kind of the bigger point. Like, some people are afraid to spend money like that, and you're like, you know what? I have it, and I think the difference is when you were at that stage, probably you had a conviction. Now you knew something was happening. You knew you were on to something, and you started to feel like, okay, like this is, whoever you look to upstairs, depending on what religion you are, you're probably like, this feels right. This feels like the direction I'm supposed to follow. And so when those things come up, you'll just know, and you go, you know what? Yes, take my money. Let's go. Let's do this. I'm sending it,
Yep.
My life's been a lot like that the last couple of years too. And you start to almost trust those little whispers from the universe and go, all right, I'm doing it.
Yeah. So it was funny because at that weekend, they had a sign, like we were going to eat breakfast at the house. It was like a brunch. And that's how we started it off. So we got there first thing Saturday morning. So we went to his grand opening of the office Friday night, got to hang out. And then Saturday morning, we were starting the little mastermind. And we came in, they had brunch. They had assigned seating. Well, my seat just happened to be right next to Ryan. So I'm sitting here at brunch, shoulder to shoulder, just chatting. We're chatting it up. And that's all I did was just get to know him. He got to know me. And then I was like, cool, that was the whole goal. And when he came to Dallas, of course we met. He's like, oh, Levi, and then we got it, so we had some familiarity, got to know each other a little bit more there. And then we go to dinner. Well, I got to dinner like a little bit late because everybody was talking to me after the event. And for some reason, nobody sat directly beside Ryan. So whenever I got there, I just sat in the seat right beside him. And we were sitting there chatting it up. And about halfway through dinner, he said something like, well, yeah, let me know if I can do anything for, to help y'all out in any way. And I just said, hey, would you write the forward for our book? And he goes, sure. No, I'm sorry. Stop. Wait, I actually said, hey, by the way, Ryan, I said, I'm going to quote you in the book that I'm writing. Is that okay? I said, because, he says people hate being sold, but they love shopping with friends was his quote, or at least I've heard him say that. Okay. People hate being sold, but they love shopping with friends. So that's how he runs his real estate business. He treats people as if they're shopping together, right? And so I said, hey, I'm going to quote you in the book. Is that okay? And he said, oh, yeah, sure. He goes, you can quote me on every single page of your book, because he understands, right? He wants his name out there as much as possible. And I was like, well, it's just one. I said, but would you like to write the forward for our book? And he goes, sure. Yeah, of course. And I was like, okay. So I said, how do we make that happen? And he goes, shoot me an email. I was like, perfect. And the book wasn't ready for about another 3 months. And so after 3 months, I was like,
what your response to this?
I was like, Ryan, yeah. I was like, oh, is he? And he responded. We went back and forth on a couple of emails. And I said, hey, do you want me to write it for you and send it to you, or do you want to write it on your own? And he said, yeah. He goes, you can put something together, send it to me, and I'll approve that or something. I said, cool. So we actually took his speech from that Dallas speech, and we transcribed it and looked at it and said, okay, what's the theme? What's he trying to put together? And so just built a forward from that and sent it to him. He changed maybe 2 lines, and that was it. Sent it back and said, done.
That's amazing, man. So now what a great validation the book has. I'm excited to get my copy, and I'm definitely going to read it. I'm a book guy for sure. So I love that. Are you going to put that on Audible?
It's already there.
So you did it. Is it your voice?
Yep.
I get to hear your beautiful voice now. You really get that attachment. You should have hired like Matthew McConaughey to like really serenade them through,
Oh yeah.
I love that. I don't know. Did you read his book, Green Lights?
Yes.
Yeah. It's like, I actually don't know the difference, but I know that like women across the world went crazy for his voice in the Audible. And they're like, I could just fall asleep to that every single night,
Yeah. I listened to the Audible, and I love Audibles read by the authors, and he just took it. It made my admiration for him. I mean, I'm not a big like movie star guy or anything. I do appreciate his acting. I think
he's the man. But after the book, I'm with you. I was like, I'm a fan.
After the book, I was just like, man, that is one cool dude, man.
Yeah. No, I agree, man. I agree.
Man. He just rode his train all the way through life, and I was just like, man, he was. It's like he was along for the ride of his life, and I just felt, I was like, man, this dude's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love how you did this bumper stickers. Always drink to remember, never drink to forget.
Yeah.
And I loved it. So man, it's incredible. So you got this YouTube channel popping, you got passive prospecting, and you are with EXP Brokerage, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so you got an incredible business model there too, with a huge company. So it seems like everything's surging for you. You're getting invited on podcasts. I saw you on Ryan Pineda's podcast, which was amazing. And it was cool because I'm a big fan of Ryan. I was actually just in Vegas, and I actually reached out to Brad Lee, and you're familiar with him. I had a group chat connected. He said, hey, next time you're in Vegas, let me know. I'll get you on the podcast to meet. I'm an idiot, and I didn't pre-schedule this. So I'm on the plane to Vegas. I'm like, oh my God, I'm Vegas. So I sent him an Instagram message. He goes, can you do it this day? I was already flown out, and I was like, I can't, but I could make it back for that. Same thing with Ryan Pineda. I saw you were on there after you're already booked for this show, which I was like, this is awesome. I was like, this, because his brand just
that was
growing before,
I planned that out too. So I knew I was going to be in Vegas, a couple of weeks ago. And so I started hitting up like Sean Cannell from Think Media.
Yeah, he's dope.
Yeah,
he's an OG in the YouTube game.
Yeah. Well, I've been on his podcast twice, but I haven't been there in person. We've done it on video. So I'm like Omar El Takori and Ryan. I'm like, hey, I'm going to be there in like 2. So I was hitting him up a couple of weeks in advance, trying to get in, because I'm like, look, if I can get there. And I was there for Inman. That's what it was, for the Inman conference. And sure enough, Ryan was like, boom. And I just got a text from Ryan 2 days ago. I'm speaking at WealthCon in 2 weeks. I'm
getting the ads for that.
Yep.
What was his studio like? Pretty impressive.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we've been there a couple of times. We went to, we built a relationship with him, and we've been there a couple of times in his office for some little private events, and that we've paid to get into. I'm a part of their, they've got a wealthy creator program. So I work with his YouTube producer. Him and I get on calls, and, they kind of, critique some stuff on my YouTube channel and everything like that. So that's helped out with the relationship, of course. And so, we've just gotten to know him over the last year, but he's got the business model where we, that's where we're trying to be.
You want to be. Yeah. I agree. He's the man too. I love that. So the YouTube channel is just bringing in leads. And what is your flow? You're telling me this morning on our phone call about this, but it was different than I expected it to be. So it's very clever how you did it. So you create a video, videos create leads. And then what happened to those leads now?
Well, we have either somebody answer the phone or reply to the text in the emails, or the Zoom calls go straight to Travis. So I took the first 350 phone calls, emails, and texts because I wanted to learn the process, but I only sold one house. I actually got it out of production.
That's the part. That's amazing. I want people to hear more about that. So
yeah. Well, I mean, I came into this with the intention of finding a partner or a referral agent or something like that, because again, I was just like, I was kind of done. I didn't want to prospect. I knew that. And I also thought, I don't know if I really want to get back into sales immediately. I want to try this marketing thing. I've always been a great salesperson, but never understood marketing. So I'm like, I'm going to study marketing and figure that aspect out. But I was prepared in case I had to show homes and open doors. I was prepared for that. But I met Travis, my business partner at the time, just perfect timing. You know, like you said, it's a God thing where things just happen, fall into place. And he hated marketing. He had been running a marketing agency for the last 5 years. Same thing, business, you know, got shut down. And he was like, I don't want to do marketing. I want to do some sales. So when we started talking, it was kind of like, oh, it sounds like we want to do opposite, you know? And so whenever those first leads started coming in, he was like, hey, I'll take them out. I'll go show them homes. I'll write the contracts. I'll handle everything. I was like, cool. And nobody had a single problem with that. And as soon as he got too busy, we had to bring on another agent and another agent, up to where we had to scale to 10 agents. We were getting 5.5 leads per day. And we could not keep up with them. So we had to just keep adding team members. And we had 5 agents last year do over 6 figures in commissions just from the YouTube leads we gave them.
Are most of these leads coming in as buyers?
Yeah. Yep. But they're the best buyers on the planet because they're intentional. They're decision makers. They act fast. Most of them would contract within 1 day or 2 days of looking.
And because they're most likely, and you tell me if I'm right, the way I would anticipate this being is they're relocating to Dallas, job transfer, moving for some reason. So they're already coming there and they're doing what I would do, which is sit around at the end of the night after my shower and watch videos about Dallas, what to expect.
Exactly.
So they're like, well, I know who I'm going to talk to find me a house. So is that kind of the vibe, or it's not? Is it often sellers or no?
Same thing with St. Pete, Tampa area, right? So that's, you know, people are looking to relocate and make that move, and they want to start researching.
I mean, getting ideas, guys. Me and Levi are going to have a game chat after this. Maybe.
Yeah, no, we do get listings. It's not, you're going to be definitely more buyer heavy, but again, I mean, I've collected a referral check off of 272 transactions, you know, and I haven't opened a single door. So I don't mind buyers at all.
Yeah. How do you, if you don't mind talking about that, and if you know, this is a public podcast, so if you don't want to disclose those things, but how does that work for you? Is there a percentage that you set each time?
Yeah. So, I mean, well, it depends on if we give it to the team or not. So Travis and I are 50-50 in our business partnerships. So if he closes a deal, 100% of that commission goes to the company. So he doesn't earn a personal commission, you could say. Well, how that works really is we split the commission. We're 50-50, but it goes into our company account.
And you pay each other, like you pay each other salary.
We pay each other salaries. Yep. And owners draws and things like that. Now, if a lead goes straight to a team member, we're 50-50 with that team member. And then, so that means 25-25, you know, to me and Travis. So
smart, man. It's an incredible model. It really is. And so if you were going to give advice to an agent, so you got some agent and they're similar to you, right? They've been in a career before. They're a 38-year-old hustler, great at sales. And they're starting off in the middle, like Orlando, Florida, or some of these other areas that are big metropolitan areas. What would you advise them to start doing first? Would you say messy action? My advice is messy action, but it sounds like you're like, no, sit back, make a game plan, calculate it. And I've seen people succeed with both of these approaches. I've seen this like, get started, figure it out as you go. It's better that way, right? Get your cuts and skin your knees, and you'll figure it out. But I also like your approach. So what do you think? What is advice you would give?
Depends on your financial situation. So if you have money, then I would sit back and plan a little bit and be methodical. If you don't have money, messy action's probably the way to go, right? You better get something going fast. But that's hard to do in real estate. But if you're going to do it in real estate, probably open houses is really your best way to generate some sort of business within the next 30 to 60 days. YouTube's a long-term play. But if you're thinking about real estate and you're not in it yet, I want to advise you to this. If you're starting out, you need to figure out what is the path of least resistance, which means what are you most likely to stick with?
Yes, exactly my point. Stay with it.
Yeah, but you've got to do the right thing that you will stay with it, and that may not be video. What you're hearing today may sound great, but if you cannot bring yourself to get on video, it's not going to work. So you need to determine, are you a people person? Are you a phone call person? Are you a reader and a writer, or are you a video person? So if you can determine which one you are, that's the path of least resistance. That's what you're most likely to succeed at, in my opinion. If you're a people person, maybe open houses and networking events, you're going to love that because you're going to get to interact with people and have fun and do things and run around and, just interact. If you're a phone call person, actually, there are people that like to make phone calls all day. They would rather get rejected on the phone 100 times a day than to get rejected by somebody face to face.
Sure, sure.
So go that maybe you're going to call FSBOs and expireds all day. If you're a reader and a writer and you've got a fear of talking to people and phone calls, maybe you can type out the best postcard campaign, build a database. Maybe you start a Facebook group and start collecting people in your local market in a Facebook group. And then you can just comment and add value that way the whole day. And if you're a video person, well, then start making videos. That's what you have to do. So if you follow one of those 4 paths, which fits your personality, I believe that's going to lead you to success.
I love that. Yeah, I totally agree with you, man. Pick what you're good at. I feel like that's something I had to tell myself too. In 10 years, I've sold video as my business. I realized a few years in, I was like, I'm actually doing a big disservice, which is that I'm not disqualifying anyone because I wanted the customer. And so now we're at the point where we'll have a call similar to this via Zoom. And there are people where I'll be like, hey, honestly, Levi, I don't know if you're going to be the best fit for a video campaign, but maybe do you have someone on your team just based on the things you're telling me? You feel uncomfortable. Like, for instance, like Levi, you present well, right? You're in shape, your beard's trimmed up, you got a haircut, you got a hairstyle, right? You got nice white teeth, and you're used to being on camera. So one thing that does happen is when people start getting on video, they will start to slowly improve their image because they're seeing more of themselves and they go, oh, wow. They start booking the teeth whitening services, going to the barbershop once a week now, not every 4 weeks, right? But in general, some people are so insecure with themselves. And I'm like, I just don't think getting on camera is going to be the best thing for you right now. Now I will disqualify people because they need to hear it. But this might be the move for you, right? You can still run a social media with this. You can still do it with this. So I find that to be, I think, the better integrity with clients is not trying to make everyone believe that they can all just be the next Levi Lascsak on YouTube because they might not have your personality and your charisma. That's just the plain truth of it.
But they could be the best cold caller.
That's it. There is something for them. That's what I mean. There's an area for them where
but
they can put immense effort and get immense reward.
Yeah, but the second part to that, remember, is to hyper learn that subject. So if I put in FSBO on Amazon right now, there's going to be 50 marketing books that will teach you how to sell to FSBOs. But you know what? Most people will never read a single one of them.
Why do you think it is, though? As we were talking earlier, why is that, Levi?
I mean, it's laziness, really. I mean,
is it? So is it because I'm not arguing, but it's like I'm the type. I'm a hyper.
Well, maybe it's lack of resourcefulness.
I think it's truly, as the world has progressed on, it's lack of ability to focus. I think the desire is there. So laziness is like, I don't care. But I think they have a desire. They're like, I want this. I know I need this. My family needs this. And they sit down and they try to audible and they find themselves drift off and they just go, I can't focus. Well, just try harder, dude. Like if you go, you could just put some time in, maybe just do 10 minutes at a time. I have this thing right here, which is what I do with this. So I flip this over when I'm working. It's just 30 minutes. And for 30 minutes, boom, I don't touch my phone. And it's something that keeps me locked into my work. But there's little hacks you can do. And I think more people need to realize like they can learn. Learning isn't something that you can throw your hands up in the air and go do this, because that's the problem is people stopped school 15, 20, 30 years ago. They did their real estate exam. They've been in the business for 15 years. It's changing. It's quick. And now they're seeing the social media agents like yourself start to dominate and they feel like they're a dinosaur. And it's like, no, you just got to keep up with the learning. You just got to stay on it. There's absolutely hope for everybody.
Yeah.
So
but how many times have you turned over that hourglass and then you went way past the 30 minutes?
Often.
Yeah.
Because I lock in. Once you lock in, but I don't struggle with a focus problem. So sometimes it could be problematic on the other end for me. It can be problematic in my relationship where if I get on a wormhole of something, like I'm also obsessed with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've been doing that sport for 18 years. I'm not sure if you ever tried it before. It's got a way to just get in your head, so I'm still in this. I'm a black belt. I've competed at world championship level. And I still sometimes, if I see a cool new move that was pulled off in the UFC, the next day I'm just like, I got to find out how it was done. And I'm like on it. So sometimes for me, like, my brain doesn't stop. It's 10 p.m. I'm still studying at night. And my partner's like, hey, I need some cuddle time. I need some personal time. I need to feel some love here before I get to bed. And I have to remind myself, yeah, you're right. Come back to your life. But that's a gift that I believe I have. It was a disadvantage at times in my life. And it's something I've learned to harness. Not everyone has to have it that way, but they can do an hour a day. And then tomorrow an hour. But they can learn things. I'm totally with you. And I love the message you're talking about, which is that you decided to hyper focus and learn YouTube. You've done an incredible job with it. So how does that transition now to your coaching and your teaching? So right now you are actually teaching agents. You've been like, hey, I've accomplished success. I think that the number that you're earning per year is most people's first goal where they would consider themselves to be rich. They would say, all right, if I can earn $1 million in a year, that's it. You see, that's up there. I truly believe that's something, and this is a bigger topic, and I want to ask you about this as well. It's like, I read Patrick Bet-David's book called Your Next 5 Moves. Read it yet?
It's on the shelf. I haven't read it yet.
You'll love it. You're going to love it. It was so well written. One of the things he says, which I love in the book, was that people need to identify who you are. Are you the CEO or are you a manager? And the reason is he means that he's like, do you need a calm nervous system? Do you need a weekend? Do you need your evenings off? Some people truly need that. They could make $200,000 a year. They're eating steaks for dinner. They're taking vacation with their family, and they're having time to go to their kids' softball games and take their kids to the beach on the weekends. They have that life. Some people are working 90 hours a week. They're always stressed, but they need the challenge. So I was like, once you know who you are and what will actually make you happy, then you know what you need to make to achieve that lifestyle. And it's like, that's something we establish before we hire in our organizations, because people can get confused thinking that your goals are my goals. Just because a mentor of mine wants to make 70 million a year doesn't mean that's what I'm willing to sacrifice to make that. That's and I've heard it said best that real life, true free life starts at 250,000 a year. So makes $250,000 a year. They're pretty much unlocked every freedom that a normal person wants to have. You're like a family, wife, kids, husband, you've unlocked everything. So you can live really well for that. Now, of course, there's always bigger trips and bigger houses and things, but essentially the basic human needs are met at that point, and you're not worried about the grocery bill anymore. So at that point, do you continue to say, hey, I want to help more agents get through that first threshold? Because it seems like that's what I got from you this morning. You're like, I've done it. I'm good. Our machine is working. But now you're like, but so many others can't seem to figure it out. This is where I come in to help them do it.
Yeah, our goal with everybody is 100K in 100 days. So that's what we really like to strive. It seems something that's very attainable. Now, that's not the first 100 days, but as soon as you get the first deal under contract, if you position it correctly, follow the format, we believe you can do 100,000 in commissions over that 100 days from getting that first deal under contract. So that's a very small attainable goal. And, we do that on purpose because we want people to, regardless whether you want to be rich or you just are trying to earn an income, 100K in 100 days will change a lot of people's lives. But it also sounds something very doable, as to where if I said, hey, $1 million in a year, some people haven't even made 100,000 or 200,000.
Yeah, so it sounds too far, and it sounds like you're talking out of your ass. I know, right? You could say a goal too big, and like, what? $1 million, dude? I haven't even seen 100K in a year yet. So slow your roll. I'm with you on that. So setting reasonable goals, right? But for you now, $1 million doesn't seem too far fetched. You're probably setting your sights on something bigger, and you're like, hey,
I love stretch goals and BHAGs.
Like what? Sir Hant wrote my foreword. I'm crushing this. I'm getting invited on podcasts every day. It's like, what can I achieve? And that's a cool place to be, where you start to realize there is this limitless abundance out there. So on the note of your videos, yeah, I want to hear it.
It's $1 million a month.
Let's go. That's a good goal. That's a good goal, man.
Here's I want to go back to what you were saying about Patrick Bet-David. Here's where going to one of Ryan Pineda's events changed everything for me. Even more is because I listened to Gary Harper, who runs Sharper Consulting, spoke at one of Ryan's events, and it just blew me away. It was the missing piece, and it was another answer to a question of back in 2020, like, how did I end up in this position? I always thought, as a founder, because I've always tried to found this company or that company, right? And so now the last one was good with the financial services, but I've always had these little side hustles or things like that. First of all, I wasn't dedicated, right? I didn't hyper learn. I wasn't dedicated. They were side hustles. I think that's very difficult to build up. But at the same time, I always felt I had to be the one building everything from the ground up, right? That grind mentality, that, I got to do it yourself, bootstrap. And when I listened to Gary Harper speak, he said, nope. He goes, I will never start a business unless I have the operator in place, the person that's going to run that business. And that's how Ryan Pineda has been able to open so many businesses. He has seven-figure businesses now, some 8 figures. And he goes home at 5:00 every day and golfs on Fridays and takes every weekend off. And it's like, wait a second, how do you do that? Well, because Ryan, he consults with Gary, and Gary taught him that you never start a business unless you have the operator in place. So I was always trying to do everything from the ground up. Ryan and Gary, they start a business from the top down. Who's the COO, most importantly? that's the very first person you hire, because they're the one that's going to run everything. You're going to be the visionary, and you're going to set the tone and the pace and the direction, and you're going to let that operator do everything else, start the business, do the operations, hire, all that stuff.
And on that note, this is a great question. Unless are you guys there yet, or this is in the strategies phase yet with hiring a CEO? The question I have for you is, what does a CEO's compensation look like? Being that, and this is something Patrick Bet-David talked about a lot in the book as well, was he was speaking about oftentimes some of your high-level positions will expect way more than they should get. And he's like, you understand the difference in me and them is that I took all the financial risk, and this came from here. He's like, the decision to put the gas, decision to move forward, and all the risk comes down to me. He's like, so there's not a 50-50 split in these relationships. He's like, they're being paid a salary with bonuses. This isn't something where they're owning half my business. And I think that's could be one of the friction points with some, is that if they feel like they're running the whole thing, like, well, hey, I want my big share now.
Well, I think it's who, not how. And the how is kind of like the compensation, the salary, things like that. If you find the right person and you can work on the right terms, you'll know their value. I mean, you should know their value before you hire them. So really the salary is irrelevant, because you should set a salary that you believe you'll get a return on. Our COO of passive prospecting is 24 years old, and but he's a prodigy. And this guy, and he's dialed in. But we also knew him for the last year and a half, so there was already an established relationship. But we know what he could handle, and so but we negotiated a salary with him and 10% of profit. And so we had this conversation actually 2 days ago, because our profit account, we've started to follow the profit first model.
I remember that book. Yeah.
We started to follow that model because, we're always reinvesting our money and never really taking anything extra for ourselves. And that's something else, like Gary taught us about that. He's like, no, you need to take some money for yourself. You need to pay yourself, do all this other stuff. We paid ourselves good salaries, but we weren't, diving in on the profits. So, and I told him, I was like, look, we allocate 20% for profit right now, but we need to expand that to, the goal is 60% profit. That's where we want to be. And so that could take his compensation monthly to multiple 5 figures, and that's what 2 days ago, literally we had this conversation. I said, my goal is by December, I hope I'm paying you $60,000 a month, That's
huge. Yeah. That's huge for a 24-year-old for sure. That's amazing.
Yeah. And he's a beast, though. I mean, and just super cool, really well tempered, but also he understands ads, he understands operations, and then we brought on a CMO, a chief marketing officer, and we did the same with him. Negotiated salary, and we're able to bring the salary down a little bit because we're offering him the upside. So we also offered him 10% of profit. Not gross revenue, but of profit.
Yeah, what you guys have for expenses.
Yeah, and I want to pay him because he's doing all the copywriting, building out funnels, and these two guys are like now the dynamic duo. They are both what they've been looking for as well. So they love each other already.
Dream team.
It's created great synergy. Yeah, and so now we've got the right people in place, and they're incentivized to grow the company, and they feel like they're owners without being owners.
That's amazing, man. I feel like we could go all day, but I want to cut it right at the hour mark so we don't lose our viewers. But guys, where can they follow you at, Levi? Where can they connect with you at?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Instagram, of course, the YouTube guy on Instagram, but I don't know, that's where we do a lot of messaging. But Levi Lascsak on Instagram. You can find Passive Prospecting on YouTube. You can go to backstage.passiveprospecting if you want to get into our upcoming 2-day event for only $47. So just go to backstage.passiveprospecting.com, and hopefully we'll see you on the next workshop that we do.
Awesome, man. That has been so value-packed. Probably one of my favorite episodes as far as value goes. So I much appreciate you. Guys, I'll see you next time.